Strength. It's not just about lifting bars. It resides within every unique journey. This is To The Bar. Strength in every story. We're a community, a platform where stories meet strength. Our podcast is the result of our passion for weightlifting. From the first lift to the last, we're here to bring you the latest weightlifting news, to unravel the intricacies of the sport that will make you want to grab a barbell and hit the platform. This is To The Bar. Strength in every story. And now for today's show.
Yeah, lovely. All right, well, welcome to The Bar.
Thank you.
So we're your hosts. I'm Jess Roebuck-Slaney.
And I'm Aaron Holt.
And today we have a guest with us. So we've got Matt Curtin from BWL, the CEO.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
No, lovely, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether you remember, but so I first met you, I think you were pretty new into the job, and it was at the Derby, the British Derby Arena.
Mm-hmm. English Championships.
Yeah, was it the English? God, you've got better memory than I have. And it was so funny because you came over, you spotted me, came over, I was of course in my TO gear. You asked if I was refereeing, and I said yeah. And I asked you if you were, because I saw you in a shirt and trousers, and I thought, oh, you must be a new TO. I've not seen you on the circuit. So I asked you if you were TOing, and you said no. And so I asked you if you had any experience TOing, and you turned around and said, well, yeah, sort of. So I organised the Sydney or the weightlifting for the Sydney Olympics and the weightlifting for the British or for the London 2012, and I suddenly sort of sat back and thought, who the hell am I talking to? And then you added to that. So I'm also the CEO of British Weightlifting, and
yeah.
But it was great because it was very nonchalant. It wasn't you should know who I am.
Yeah.
And
well,
that's,
you should, shouldn't you? No.
yeah. But I loved that, and it was a great introduction, and to what a break from what I was used to from the old school BWL.
Old school
it was.
No, thank you for that. Let me just say from the outset, congratulations for what you guys are doing, and I mean that more eyeballs on our sport can only benefit the athletes, not only of today, but obviously of tomorrow. I do remember that in Derby, the England Championships. I can't remember exactly what the month was, maybe September or October last year, but yes, I do remember that encounter, and thank you for reflecting in that way, because first and foremost, irrespective of the position I hold or have held or will hold in the future, first and foremost, I'm a weightlifting person. I'm only here because I was a weightlifting athlete when I had more muscle and more hair a few years ago. So as I walk into any weightlifting room, or indeed any room that's associated with our sport, it's always one of a level basis as a weightlifting athlete. But just one correction in case people do, in Australia do read this. I wasn't in charge of the Olympic Games in Sydney 2000, but indeed it was a humble international technical official at the ripe old age of about 26 years of age. I was at the Sydney Olympics, which was my first games.
Yeah, I think that really comes across though when you're, or at any comp we've done, I always feel like it comes across, you don't come across like the CEO, you come across as somebody that's just there because you love the weightlifting. I think that's really nice.
No, thank you. But it's the truth, of course. There's a professional part to my involvement in British weightlifting, and it's one that I take extremely seriously. But at the same time, I've always been a huge believer in all the teams that I've been either part of or indeed led, that you take your work very seriously, but you don't necessarily take yourself too seriously. We're a volunteer-based organisation. We're a membership-based organisation. A few of us have the great honour of being paid and employed to work for the sport, but we must never forget that the members are indeed the rank and file. So we must do our work with the members. So it is a genuine approach, not only of me, but hopefully you've seen of the staff over the last couple of years, a bit of a change in culture, that actually it's one team. It's not us versus them or BWL is based in Leeds. No. You guys are actually BWL as well.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that on an episode before, haven't we? We were talking about what BWL does well, and we said hires the right people. I think it really does come across with all the staff at BWL, that feeling of we're all one. Like, there's nobody that makes you feel any differently if they work for BWL or not. You all feel like one.
No, thank you. I mean, it's not for me, obviously, to judge the past administrations. I was a board member, actually, until I came on board as CEO since 2018. But for me, whether it's sport, whether it's business, whether it's your circle of friends, it's about people and partnerships at the end of the day, and it's a common cause. We can have different opinions. I have no issue with that. I have no issue with that at all, even within the team.
Yeah.
So long as it's conveyed and expressed in a very kind of respectful way, I've got no issue with that, because I know we're on the same side.
Yeah.
We might be on different pages and so forth, but we all want to push the sport forward, because that's the common binding denominator.
Yeah.
And if we can find a way of achieving that, well, happy days.
Yeah. Now, speaking of moving the sport forward, so Aaron and I both officiated at both the British Championships and the English Championships last year, and they were incredible. They were really fantastic comps to be at, and that's not to say that the ones I'd done before weren't, but those two particularly were. They were really something special. And obviously we see lots of these things online, don't we, of BWL 2.0, and it felt to me like those comps were almost showing us what BWL 2.0 is, or what it's going to be. Is that what BWL 2.0 is?
What do you think BWL 2.0 is?
I sort of read that and I think, it's moving forward. It's sort of how do we bring more people in? How do we make the sport more modern? Or I don't know. I suppose that is it for me.
Aaron, what's your view? What's 2.0 to you?
That's a difficult question. I'd like to, again, I think it's the next generation. It's bringing new people into the sport. It's trying to expand it. I think hopefully long gone are the days of it being just a boring spectator, experience for the spectators. I think we need to try and revitalise that, give them something more to look at than just, a very short snippet of an athlete coming onto a platform and then going and then disappearing for 2 minutes or whatever.
Look, BWL is all that. 2.0 is all that and more. I must admit and share with you, and indeed your listeners and viewers, that there's nothing in writing which articulates what 2.0 is. What 2.0 is to me, coming in from having been a board member since 2018 and taking over in 2022, was effectively, how do we bring to life all those chats and discussions and workshopping that all of us have had at the bar, as in a cheeky drink or whatever your preferred beverage is. All those discussions, wouldn't it be fantastic if we did this, or we did that? Or why doesn't British Weightlifting do this? Or indeed, way back when, it was better because of A, B, C and D. So I took the approach, again, having the great fortune, having worked in the sport since the get-go until now, to really have that at the forefront of all my planning. But to articulate that very simply is to ensure that everything we do, we put the athlete first. That we're an athlete-centred, sport-focused organisation. It's not a catchphrase. I mean, it is a catchphrase, but it's not just a catchphrase. And I'd said to the colleagues in the office, and indeed reminded my colleagues on the board, that if this meant one extra level of consultation, we would do this. Because every decision that we make should have the athlete at the heart of the direction of travel. So when you kind of talk about the British Championships and the England Championships, it's not an accident. Because we're creating this theatre for the athlete to do their best work. Because at the end of the day, the athlete and the competition is the shop window to what we do. Of course, we're doing everything in the back of house, and of course, everything else to our strategy is super, super, super important, and I'm sure you're going to touch on that as well. But in terms of athletic competition, that's the shop front. So the more we can create value, and the more we can change the dynamic of our competition, that's going to grow our footprint. So in some respects, that's 2.0. But equally, 2.0 is bringing to life the strategy, the Stronger Together strategy. Now, we've all done strategies, of course, and the reality is that some strategies sit on the sit on the shelf after they are adopted. And in terms of our strategy, it's really, really clear. And my elevator pitch to our strategy is weightlifting is one word, weightlifting is 2 words. So the traditional kind of pyramid of pathway and performance hasn't changed. At its peak, weightlifting and powerlifting is one word, and that won't change. And of course, we're coming off the back of 4 medals from the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Tokyo 2021 in weightlifting, of course, and 3 in powerlifting. So that's one word. That's the sport. That's a classical sport of weightlifting and powerlifting. And in that regard, we're obviously funded well by UK Sport. And it wasn't for me to necessarily change any architecture in that regard, check and challenge, of course, but our performance teams are going in the right direction. And indeed, God willing, in less than 200 days, the Olympic Games will start and that journey will continue. But the real fun, let's say, or the challenge is at the base, the participation. And that's where I kind of coined the phrase, weightlifting is 2 words. Weight lifting, the lifting of weights. And in that respect, we're talking about 7 million gym subscribers, members, just in England alone. How do we create value? How do we create a conversation? How do we create an affiliation to try to buy into that market? And that also is 2.0. And so when I come here to Epsom this morning, to this particular gym, and see the 2 worlds together, I find great solidarity in that, because these 2 worlds, and here of course I'm talking about CrossFit, functional fitness, general health and well-being, and the sport of weightlifting / powerlifting, not always being on the same page, but these are natural first cousins to me. And these 2 sports and these 2 movements, let's say, can and should exist, certainly in Britain, and certainly under the leadership over the last couple of years. Not only myself, but like-minded people in the office and indeed the board are moving in this particular direction. So perhaps that's just a snippet of what 2.0 is, but certainly there's not a piece of paper or a book that says what we need to do. No, it's about just like doing things differently. I've said to the staff that it can't be business as usual. It can't be. We shouldn't be, rather. It shouldn't be business as usual. Let's make it more fun, more exciting, more approachable. Let's do things more with the members and get their opinion. Because, again, I grew up in the sport. I'm only here because of the sport. And so I know how massively important it is to get the opinion of the members. Even if you disagree with them, even if you know it's going to be uncomfortable, because I know what it's like to be on the other side and not be in a position of authority or a decision maker and not being necessarily heard. So I come into this role perhaps with a bit of experience to know how to manage that in the best possible way.
So we did, after Fitfest and the British actually, we did little polls on our Instagram asking people for feedback. And I think BWL did as well for Fitfest, right? Yeah. And we got loads of positive feedback. I mean, I got to the point where I stopped sharing it because people were saying they were identifying the same things. But it was lots of positive feedback. Did you get the same?
Yeah, we did, which was all great. I mean, some of the feedback was it was too noisy, and I do understand the context of it being too noisy. But I asked those kind of 32 British record holders if it was too noisy, and no one said it was too noisy. So no, thank you. Again, it's done by design, not necessarily by accident. Just having those 2 worlds come together so we can celebrate both sports, and indeed British rowing, to be fair. Also on the Saturday, they had 1,800 participants come through their doors on the Saturdays. So this is the market that they're looking at as well. And let me tell you, it's big enough for everyone. Yeah, it's big enough for everyone. So very, very happy with the feedback, and we're going to do more this year. I can't say too much. Yeah. Certainly my colleagues in the office wouldn't be happy if I started announcing things without their proper approval process, but we'll do a lot more this year. So we'll have a British Championship, which will get announced shortly, July, for your listeners. Here's the first scoop for you.
July. Watch this space.
Yeah, awesome.
very, very shortly, and again the England Championships this year in December. There's a small clash, unfortunately, with the World Championships, but the England Championships will be held in December of this year. So yeah, the feedback was very, very positive. You never know how these things are going to happen, especially when you work with third partners.
Yeah.
But working with the National Fitness Games, Fitfest.
I imagine the timings of it all is just a headache that no one really wants.
It's just a reality of life working with commercial venues. On one side, in terms of strategy, we obviously wish to continue to, let's say, globalise the sport in the UK, which includes Wales, which includes Northern Ireland, and we've started to do that step by step. It's not easy. We obviously had Bucks at Bangor University in Wales last year. We had the British Masters in Scotland. No, we haven't forgotten. Sorry, we had the British Masters in
Glasgow.
And we haven't forgotten about Northern Ireland. So we have that strategy, but that comes with cost. You know, we move the kit around, which is not cheap, but at the same time it provides that credibility, integrity, and that feel-good, world-class feeling when athletes compete on the Commonwealth Games kit. But that comes at a cost. So you have that dynamic, but equally you have the dynamic of having a permanent home that we're also looking at the moment. And let's also now put into the equation having the great experiences with the Fitfest type stuff. So
a lot of moving parts.
It's about moving, but really it is. And I think that also speaks of 2.0.
Yeah.
That we're vulnerable and we're ready to work and not necessarily plan to make mistakes, but adjust as needed.
Yeah, I think that's great though.
Because we're trying to serve consciously the members and not necessarily tell the members what's happening, but work with the members and say, this is what's going on. And I think a good example, if I could add one more sentence, was changing the constitution last year to show the members that we recognise that it's not so easy to go to a Leeds during half term historically when it's starting to get a little bit colder. Here I'm talking about in October of each year. So we changed the constitution so our annual general meetings are being held online.
Which was great because then we could attend. We couldn't have done if it was in Leeds.
That's the whole point. COVID obviously brought that to a fore, but post-COVID, we as a board decided to do that because that was in the right interest of the organisation to make the sport more accessible, which is equally what 2.0 is about, to make things easier, not harder.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that naturally leads on. So the changes that BWL have been making, and I mean certainly for us from a TO side of things, the quick turnaround with the weigh-in, so coming in weighing in with the singlets. The change of the timing, so having the 5-minute break. Really sort of quick reactions to things, and certainly I guess that all then pivots all the way back to what was about sort of July of last year that the IWF came out with some pretty bold statements about how they wanted to really sort of look at the sport, change it for the better, hopefully. And there was a couple of key topics, and I guess one would be weightlifting itself, how the sport could be changed. Then I guess funding, also technical officials, and then technology, how we could bring technology into the sport.
He's going to narrow it down, don't worry.
So we'll pick them out sort of one by one. So I think first and foremost would be the weightlifting itself. So there were things banged around about getting rid of the press out and changing certain rules of the sport. Since July of last year, that seems to have sort of quietened down, and the narrative now is a bit more focused around bringing in more sponsors and technical sort of.
A very well-researched question. And I'm sure you're asking that question, noting that I'm sitting here with a few hats on. There's a couple of hats on, but let me address the question from a British side. I think that's the most important thing. I'm very clear on what our competitions represent. We spoke about before about being the shop front, but more philosophically, even from tier 3, tier 2, and actually soon to be tier 4, and more on that later. Competition and the notion of competition for me is really clear. It's about two things. It's only two things and two things only, fundamentally. It's about opportunity and entertainment. Fundamentally, that's for me. How I break things down and how I process, whether that's the Olympic Games, whether that's the Commonwealth Games or other events I've been involved with. It's about providing opportunity, whether that's for the athlete, for the technical official, the coach, the sponsor, the partner, etc. And that's measured by the level of entertainment. So if you understand how I think, I start to unpack that domestically, and I look at the barriers to entry. And I know the challenges that we've had previously in officiating and the service level we've been able to provide historically and how numbers have declined, which, by the way, to put things kind of in context, nationally since COVID, volunteer numbers have dropped across the board, across the metrics. So it's just a reality. But in terms of our sport, how do we make it more accessible? How do we provide that opportunity? And I felt that it was out of context that our rules and regulations effectively reflected the same level of officiating as the Olympic Games. And I look at our sport, our beautiful sport, and all its positive attributes against other sports, because we're in a competitive market, and that's also the reality. I have a soon-to-be kind of 10-year-old daughter. She's 9 going on 19, but turning 10 soon. And I, like many parents, spend my Saturday mornings as a taxi service between sport and sport, whether it's swimming or whether it's tennis or badminton or netball, or sometimes all of them. And I know what I need to do on a Saturday morning to get my daughter to sport, and then I compare that against our beloved sport, where we have the 2-hour weigh-in time, where we do have one platform. And I say, from a parent perspective, from a consumer perspective, we're not necessarily competitive in that regard. So that is also one of the reasons why we brought in the one referee in Tier 3. That's another reason why I'm trying to make things easier to get people involved. Again, I refer back to the notion of our members, our volunteers. If it wasn't through the free spirit of our volunteers, we wouldn't have a sport. So I know it's not as black and white in terms of application as perhaps it is by way of my explanation, but that's what drives me. Mm-hmm. How do we make it easier, but at the same time, because the next question will be integrity and level of officiating. This I know as well, but that's the balance, huh? That's the balance. That's the balance to try and make it a little bit easier.
So when you think about trying to make it more accessible, and obviously you mentioned earlier about coming to CrossFit Epsom and seeing the two sports being able to sort of coexist really and actually support one another, because I feel like here it's less of a coexist and more community within a community, you know, we are all one. Is there anything particular you think that BWL could do to embrace that?
Well, first of all, we trialled last year the so-called Battle of the Barbell, which was a 2-minute AMRAP, just to put our toe in the water, as it were. It's a new market for us. We took some really valuable intel from that, and we will launch some other stuff this year, including BWL will participate at the Turf Games, British Weightlifting.
Yes, I saw this. This is what I was talking to you about earlier. Turf Games.
Yeah, sorry, please explain that.
I said to you, it was on the Instagram that the BWL had entered a team into some CrossFit comp, and I couldn't remember which one.
Turf Games in the summer, I think it's June, end of June, we'll enter a team. So I think that would be the two most important things, that just step by step. I think for me, again, it's about balance, and it's about doing things in a measured way. And whilst I'm definitely the duck in water, flapping like mad beneath the surface, but above the surface, been quite calculated. So as we enter this new market of CrossFit and strength and condition and functional fitness, it cannot be as a replacement to our, let's call it, classical events, both weightlifting and para-powerlifting. They have to complement each other, and we're like other NGBs, national governing bodies. We have limited resource and time and energy and focus. To be fair, it's an Olympic era and the Paralympic year. So the next step of that journey, in a very formal way, is for our team to compete at the Turf Games, where we'll meet new people and we'll have more networking. We can see what's out there, and perhaps in the future we might run our own CrossFit-like events as well.
So there was one in the summer, wasn't there? It was in Greece where they had 3 platforms, but we didn't really see that much.
Was it in Athens?
Yeah.
There was I think it was an EWF.
You're talking about the Olympia, yes.
And they did it outside.
Yes, 5 platforms.
Which looked amazing. Yes. Was it 5?
Yes, 5 platforms.
And I think that was done with just a single ref as well for each
One
platform.
referee per platform, correct.
Yeah, we were trying to watch it. We were doing it on Instagram stories, like pausing it, screenshotting it to each other and saying, where are the refs sitting? How does this work?
Yeah,
it looked interesting though.
Maybe on your next podcast you can get the president of the European Federation.
I mean, you gave us his contact details, I'm sure.
I flew back with him yesterday from Lima, so happy to do that. But I mean, that's kind of back to your original point, Aaron, about innovation and where the IWF is going. Well, clearly, the sport is a historical, classical sport. Weightlifting, of course, was on the program in 1896, so it has its rich history in that respect, like many other sports. But just like many other sports, we need to be more contemporary and move with the times. And so in that respect, it's about ensuring that our sport, whether it's domestically or internationally, remains relevant, especially to the youth. And so it's for that reason, again, going to your point about the IWF strategy, it's about making our events more accessible, more fun, more broadcast friendly, less equipment, having more of a top and tail approach where perhaps a competition goes no longer than an hour or an hour and a half maximum. So you can compete with the consumer market, with disposable income, especially when people are paying to be entertained. Yeah. Whether that's a concert, whether it's an art gallery, or whether that's sport. It's all about people's disposable time they have in a day.
Yeah, there's a balance in there. It's interesting talking to you about it because seeing it on an Instagram post or on an email, and seeing this is the change that we've made to the TCRs, we're potentially going to use one TO. How I interpret that is very different to then sitting and hearing you explain it. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I think I just see it and as a TO think, don't know about that. That seems a bit
radical.
That seems a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean certainly from the tier 3, single ref side of things, it's for someone sat in the chair, it's oh my god, that's a lot of pressure. All of a sudden.
As I did at the England Championships, by the way.
Yeah.
As I did.
Yes.
I think it's important from time to practice what you preach from time to time.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to be the single one. I had a few things going on at the time, and when my colleague said to me, Matt, you're up, and I said, yep, no problem. And I kind of looked around and realised I'm going solo.
Hold on.
Yeah. So it's different. It's definitely different having that conversation and being able to appreciate it from that side. I think for me, I still struggle with the idea of one at like a tier 1, but I think I struggle with the idea of being that one at a tier 1. I would really not feel confident doing that, but it's a conversation, isn't it? Because there's a balance, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that's the point. It's a balance. I'm assuming and planning that it's going to go well. Of course, there's some conditions. You need to be suitably qualified, level 3, to have a 1 official competition, as I've done for many years in the Bundesliga in Germany. But again, it speaks directly to the strategy to make things easier, not harder. We have a tier 4 project coming out shortly. You guys have already seen some stuff online. Hannah Bussey, our sport development manager, is leading in that field, and that's really going to work off the tier 3 competition. What is that next level to make it even easier to compete?
Yeah, it's interesting, yeah.
Good, bad?
Good.
Anything that makes it more accessible is good. I mean, we're always talking about trying to get more people into weightlifting, aren't we? And here, obviously, you've seen we've been setting up Atticus. A lot of the conversations we've had is about how to try and get more kids into weightlifting and how to get people in younger. So I had reservations. I still have some reservations, but I'm all up for making things more accessible. So. Yeah.
And we'll evaluate too. So we'll evaluate. If we need to tweak along the way, there's no issue with that.
Yeah.
That's the thing I think that we found really interesting since you've sort of taken over. Really, is that you're not afraid of the change. You're not, and then also not afraid to actually say this hasn't worked. Not only have we seen the trial of the different software, the IWF software when we tried it.
That was English age groups.
And England Championships as well.
And then decided you know what, that's a bit too much. Let's look at a different one, and then used Owl's CMS,
yeah, like Owls.
which is, I've got to say as well, Jean-Francois Lamy, who does the software, he's
Brilliant.
just absolutely fantastic. He's just on this crusade for perfection. So
46 countries now use the software.
yeah, so, and if anyone is looking for a bit of software, please download it and try it. But again, great. You know, you picked it up and saw it and thought, this is the one. Let's go for it.
How do you make things easier?
And it has as well. I
Yeah.
love that software. I'll happily sit on the marshal's table all day with that software, no problem. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But again, I think, you know, as I said, you're not afraid to try things. We were talking about things that how, you know, from technology side of things, we're geeks at heart. What else you could to add in? I mean, I don't know whether you've thought about it, but we thought pressure plates maybe on the platform. You know, firing up, I don't know, sort of stats of weightlifters. You know, what they're, you know, when the athlete comes out and the force velocity, stuff like that.
All those endless pots of money that you've got to make all these.
Chicken in the. We need to get more. So our membership has been. This is obviously public information in the sense that it gets reported in our annual report. We're growing steadily. We have our competition numbers is 50-50 between men and women. We have actively around 3,500 competitors nationally, which is a good number. It grew 300 since 2022. So when Emily won gold at the Commonwealth Games, it was about 3,200. It's around 3,600. So it's going in the right direction, but obviously it's nowhere near that 7 million gym users, which I mentioned before. So that's obviously our direction of travel. And if you recognise that despite all different surveys and research, our membership is an entry point to competition. Yes, we're providing value with discounts and education and newsletters and information, but at its heart, people become members to compete. And you can debate that whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. So if you understand that as a metrics, how do you grow is provide more competitions.
Yeah, make it easier to compete, to get more,
But to grow the sport in a very measured way, I'm not suggesting membership is the only measurable, but it's an important measurable. You need more competitions. Now we're kind of busting at the seams nationally, historically one platform, which is about 50, 60 athletes per day, 2-day competition. You know, there's 120 athletes, we go to 2 platforms, we've now gone to 3 platforms nationally. We can do that, but then there's also a limit because people work.
Yeah.
So you can, as we did in Birmingham in December, we asked people to get up there Friday afternoon to compete. So that's a kind of top and tail, restricted, limiting environment to deliver the national competitions. You have more national competition, which is also fine, but then you've got pressures on TOs and availability and parents and resourcing, of course. So you go the other way, hence the kind of soon-to-be-born Tier 4 competitions. We have our Tier 3s, which are hugely successful, kind of almost 200 last year, another record for us.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
No, it is, and I'm hugely impressed and thankful for the synergy that we have with our clubs, but we know we should be doing more. Mm-hmm. We know we should be doing more. We know that the clubs should be doing more, not because we're telling them, but we should be able to incentivise the club to do more. But I also understand that typically clubs are run by 1 or 2 people, gym owners, volunteers, etc. So whilst notionally it might be easy for me to say a club can run a Tier 3 competition, I also then need to factor for a club to run a Tier 3 competition, you need to set up the gym, tell the members you can't come in for the day, literally move weights, because that same competition stage is usually a training. So there's time and energy, and anything you set up, you then need to dismantle again. So I think about this and say, well, hang on. Maybe the future is to have some type of Tier 4 arrangement on training platforms. So you turn your typical Saturday training session into a competition. Yeah. And with the notion of one referee who could have the clipboard and go around to the different platforms, maybe that, because then we can get critical mass. We can get the growth can be quicker. Yeah,
it's a lot easier for clubs to have one TO per club, whereas you're sort of thinking about each club having 3 people ready to TO and then sit there and Yeah, it does make sense.
And this is about growth.
Yeah.
For the sport, and that's why in our technical rules we also started to relax the size of the platform. How do we make it easier?
Accessible.
Because if it just is what it is, the 4x4 and 3, the growth is going to be very.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as fast.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as fast as I would like, because of course his 3,500 needs to have a few more zeros afterwards. And if we agree at the tier 1 level that we're more or less got that structure right, it's at the tier 3, tier 4 level.
Yeah.
We need to expand it and make it easier.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my view. That's my view. Your viewers may have a different opinion.
Yeah.
If so, share that
I like
with
that
me.
idea.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned about the 7 million gym goers.
Yep.
And recently, a couple of months back, you also mentioned or posted about a partnership with Virgin Gym.
Yep.
What does that entail? I mean, how does it all work? I mean, can I just walk into a Virgin Gym now?
No. I mean, you're more than welcome. I'm sure Sir Richard would welcome you. I'm sure Sir Richard would welcome you in any Virgin gyms, but effectively we have a partnership with them where we're delivering education services to Virgin Active, very much at the early stages of the relationship, but it goes without saying that having a partner on board like a high street brand like Virgin Active not only gives us more credibility, let's put it this way, but equally, I believe that it gives Virgin Active credibility, knowing that they're partnering with the number one service provider of education in the country. Because if it's not us, who is it? We are the Olympic sport of weightlifting. We are the NGB for powerlifting.
Spreading the word.
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw that. And I mean, when you
weren't the only one.
When you got here, and you asked Aaron and I how we got into weightlifting, and Tara and I both said in a commercial gym. And so to me, any kind of partnership with a commercial gym where I'd never seen anybody snatch before until I saw Aaron snatch in Westcroft. So any kind of partnership targeting, people are already in a gym there, they're already sort of exploring sport. So I think that was really exciting.
Well, that's the future. Again, it's about, and I say unashamedly, I'm a weightlifting person. I'm a weightlifting person. I grew up in the sport. I started the sport by accident in 1987. So I know what it is like, and I would consider myself as part of the old school, old cloth environment. But I would also say about myself that I can have a certain level of expertise in reading the market and knowing that you need to move forward with the times. So it's about finding that balance and that blend. It's respecting the past and all its history and all its richness, but equally understanding the environment that we're in at the moment. And if we can
bring the two together,
via the high street market, the mainstream market, and you're right, to see platforms and stations and Alico equipment in high street gyms is such a positive aspect to our sport. And how do we connect? We connect through education. I mean, education, whether it's in sport or in business, education is the gateway to opportunity. And that's what we provide to Virgin Active and other partners, to be fair. So watch this space.
Yeah, I love that.
Watch that space. We did a competition also, Gym Box, in Regent Street last year, another kind of trial in the mainstream high street market, just to say, guys, we're here. Because what we're doing it's not that it's necessarily a marketing strategy, but the approach we take is a tested model. It's providing awareness first. From awareness, you go into advocacy. And then we've got our athletes, our number one role models, and our number one face of what we are and what we could be. And then from there we go into action.
Yeah.
So 2.0 also includes that. It's about exposure.
Yeah, being a bit more visible. Yeah, I like that. Makes sense.
Yeah. I guess circling back to one of the things that you sent us, again last year, there was a competition touching back on the changes to TOs.
Yep.
Just on a very selfish note.
Press out.
Well, you've skirted the press out thing. I'm circling back to that. But
only because I've got a dodgy elbow.
Yeah, because you showed me. You can touch one, but it's...
Yeah, I had I had the mobility here, but the whole kind of doesn't move too well. I'm 50 this year, so that's probably a
reason to keep the press out rule.
No, it's a reason not to do clean jerks.
Yes, but no. So you sent us a picture of one of the comps. I think it was in South America somewhere. But the TOs were in sort of say casual wear, but
Yeah.
different uniform.
Sure.
Yeah.
How's the progress on that? Because we loved that idea.
Where we at?
Certainly like a competition specific
Yeah,
t-shirt.
yeah. Well, again, something I'm probably guilty of is preaching that we're going to change the world overnight, and then taking it a little bit longer than a day or so for the evolution of our sport. But again, that's my opinion, that the entry should be easier, not harder. I fully accept there's a time and place to be suited and booted, as other sports do as well. And I fully understand the argument about the position of authority and so forth between the official and the athlete. So I get that as well. But I also understand the cost. And I also understand weather and conditions and travel, of carrying suits in planes and cars and trains and so forth. So my view, okay, and I can only speak really about here in the UK, and to be fair, we did trial this a number of years ago. For whatever reason, it perhaps never got off the ground. But I'm thinking more of a polo shirt arrangement, more of a kind of chino arrangement. But equally, I'm also thinking to celebrate the social causes which we believe in the UK and in British weightlifting. And specifically, let me reference Black History Month. Let me reference Pride Month.
Yeah.
And I've already discussed with my colleagues in the office, and I said it openly, and I'll say it again now, that we should be looking towards getting a kind of Black History Month scarf, so our officials can wear that, or a Pride scarf, or a pocket square, because to celebrate the causes which are important to us, to shine a light on the causes that are important to us, shouldn't be just 1 month a year.
Yeah.
It should be at every competition. So that's the inclusive environment that I would like to amplify more, because I believe we're an inclusive organisation, or at least more inclusive than we've ever been. But I'm not going to say to you or to your viewers that this is the end of the story, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey. But the more we continue to make these topics more mainstream, well, the more opportunity we have to actually start to change people's lives in a positive manner. And for me, that's as important as the athletic ambition we've spoken about over the last half an hour or so. We are our own ecosystem. We are the sport of weightlifting and powerlifting in this country. And we celebrate ourselves and others through our competition performances, but of course we have our position in society as well. So I'm sorry for that segue, but I think that's an important part of the officiating uniform as well. Why don't we use that opportunity to also celebrate what's important to us? We're not going to force people to wear these scarves or pocket squares, but at the same time we should provide that opportunity
Exactly.
for people to express themselves. So maybe it's three. You've got some type of new hybrid relaxed uniform. You've got the Pride and you've got the Black History as well. It's been relatively tame, Aaron.
I know.
I'm going to start asking you questions soon.
Oh God.
Okay, I think we're back on.
Trying to keep it relatively tame. I don't want to put you in a difficult position.
It's a family show.
Yeah.
It is. So how are we doing? What?
I think we're all right.
Yeah.
I feel nervously relaxed. I thought that...
We're not going to.
I thought you've got me in the corner metaphorically.
No, but...
Oh, actually, hold on.
Oh, God.
We will circle back round to
Do it.
the press out.
Yes.
Keep it in.
Keep it in?
Or keep it out.
Keep it in.
Keep it in.
Keep it in.
Keep it in.
Keep it in. It's my vote.
Yeah, keep it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an element of a sport I've kind of wrestled with metaphorically, because, and I can see why, your listeners perhaps would think that I'm contradicting myself, because I talk about opportunity and entertainment, and we are the sport of weightlifting, assuming that means to lift the most. And we talk about entertainment, and then from a consumer perspective, is a consumer going to know the difference between, is the audience member going to know? I get that as well, but I equally believe that we're a beautiful sport in the sense of our lifts, and I think it would be a step backwards from marketing, which obviously is then connected to our commercial side, to remove the press out. I think we need to, even in the UK especially, continue to provide education to our referees and our technical officials, so they know the difference between potentially a movement of the shoulder and the movement of an elbow. I think there's some work we could even do in the UK about understanding lockouts during weigh-ins and so forth, so you can kind of understand or at least have a benchmarking for the officials before the event comes in, because I do accept the fact that you're making literally split-second decisions. So overall, I would say keep it in, but I also think it's not just a binary question. Yeah. It comes also to continuing to have professional development for our officials to know the difference between shoulder movements and press outs.
Yeah, certainly, and we wholeheartedly agree with that. I think the education side of things, I think there's I think it's right, you know, the way that the levels work, and then even progressing into IWF, that it is just experience. Yeah, the more you can see and the more you can chat to other referees, and that sort of retrospective after some of the events, or some of the sessions, just have a chat and say, oh, why did you pick up on that? What did I miss? Yeah. I think that works really well, and I think, as you say, it's knowing the difference between a shoulder wobble and an elbow bend.
I think yes. Yeah. I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think that's great. So we're talking about technical officials, so still. Yeah. You are the technical delegate for Paris 2024. Yeah, this is super exciting. So,
thank you.
Well, I say it's super exciting for us because we're going to be in Paris, so we're sort of hoping to just ride off your get into the back room.
Yeah, backstage passes, please.
But no, joking aside, it's exciting. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that actually means? Or?
Yeah, so every international federation has a technical delegate. So the two technical delegates, I was appointed by our executive board. Unfortunately, I was elected myself as a board member of the IWF back in June 2022. And as part of that, the board appointed me as a TD, that's the short term, the technical delegate for Paris in, I'm going to say August or September of 2022. Mm-hmm. We subsequently appointed the second technical delegate about 6-7 months ago, Moira Larson from Canada, the first ever woman technical delegate for Olympic Games. So effectively our role is to ensure that the organising committee, this is Paris 2024, deliver the weightlifting event in accordance with our rules, the Olympic Charter and the host city agreement. So kind of turning back the clock to 2012 when I was in charge of the weightlifting event, I was reporting to the technical delegates. Now the roles reversed. So it's the first time I've worked as the technical delegate for the Olympic Games, but in past editions of my journey, I've been I was the technical delegate of the Paralympic Games for Beijing 2022 with powerlifting and other weightlifting events across the board, Pacific Games and so forth, but at Olympic level for the first time.
That's great. So I think I saw that you'd been over there already, right? Did you run a mock?
Times. Yeah, a few times.
Did they run a mock comp? Or,
we had the operational test event last summer. So the Olympic Games Paris 2024 is the first games where Olympic Agenda 2020+5 will be implemented. And basically the Olympic Agenda 2020+5 is a series of measures from the International Olympic Committee to ensure that future editions of the Olympic Games remain not only financially sustainable but also environmentally sustainable. So it's a bit of a health check to make sure that all the money is being spent and invested appropriately, which I think is right. It's a competitive market. It's a changing market. In the case of the Olympic Games 2024, the bidding process, eventually there were only two bidders, that being Paris and Los Angeles, two really, really strong bids. So it's for that reason the IOC decided to give a double award, 2024, 2028. So yes, it's been very busy out there in Paris. I think I've been out there maybe 3-4 times since my appointment, and fortunately, of course, Paris is on our doorstep. Yeah. So it's not a very long trip, as opposed to my colleague Moira, who has to come from Yukon in Canada to Paris. So I think I've got maybe 1 or 2 trips before the Games to make sure that everything's on track and on budget, and indeed it is at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because we follow a couple of technical officials from the IWF they did some seminars, some online seminars that we did for development essentially.
Yeah.
And then we followed them on Instagram, and I think they were there.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you sort of get to see these things, but from different perspectives,
Different
and trying
angles.
to pull it together as to what it was
Yeah.
or what was happening.
It was purely a
fun,
test.
yeah.
So the Olympics, so again, as opposed to perhaps past editions of test events, this was effectively an operational test
Yes.
event. So it wasn't with bells and whistles, which was done surgically and strategically. So for the test event, we tested our technical officials and the flows and the mechanics behind that. We tested the timing, scoring and results.
Yeah.
And we tested the field of play. And I'm very pleased to say that we ticked the box on all those factors. So we're looking forward to the games. It's less than 200 days away now.
Yeah.
And it was a real kind of eye-opener for me. I was in China last week inspecting the sport equipment for the Olympic Games and signing off. And when I was in the National Training Centre in Beijing, I saw the clock there and it said 190
They've got a clock
days.
on now.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So that was, yeah.
And so, who are the main sponsors for the kit?
So Zhongkong, so ZKC are the sole supplier, or is the sole supplier for the Olympic Games Paris 2024, as they were in the Tokyo Games, as they were for the Olympic Games in Rio 2016.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Who are
It
you
is.
most excited to see on the platform, do you think?
Wow. So appreciate that.
So I was going to say all the British athletes.
Yeah, maybe it sounds. It's for me the Olympic Games is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a celebration of sport.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of the world. If anyone's ever had the opportunity to attend the Olympic Games, whether it's a spectator, competitor, official, coach, or anything in between, it's a life-changing experience if you believe in the power of sport within its position in humanity and society, and that's what the Olympics is, and that's what the Paralympics is also, to be fair. So I'm not looking forward to necessarily any athlete in particular, apart from British athletes. What I'm looking forward to is that celebration. I have the great fortune, my birthday's in July, so always during the Olympic or Commonwealth Games year, it sits always kind of firmly within my birthday, albeit this time the weightlifting starts on the 7th of August. I'm looking forward to seeing friends and colleagues and athletes, clean athletes, compete at their best. I think that's the most important factor to consider. Clean athletes, and we'll have zero doping, I'm sure. At these games, the IWF has a very kind of robust anti-doping system, and I expect Paris 2024 to really be the rebirth of the IWF, having gone through, let's say, some troubles and some issues in past years. The relationship with the IOC has been rebuilt to the point where their confidence levels is sufficient enough to have us on the program for Los Angeles. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to really showing the world the kind of new IWF as well come this summer.
Sorry, so I've just picked this up because was it Doha that we saw the message from the last IWF newsletter that came back with no positive doping results among 213 athletes from 61 different countries that were tested. And that was Doha for the most recent. And I think that's, again, it sort of links back to a bigger sort of topic, but you know, the great news that weightlifting's been sort of given or included in the 2028, I can do my maths, in LA. And again, I think this is, you know, IWF pushing the boundary or making the changes that the IOC have been trying to sort of get us to make for quite a while. And you know, things like that. And you mentioned doping, which is why I just sort of picked that up, because it's so critical, isn't it? You know, we've done a couple of things on that recently.
I would just, if I can be so brave, not to necessarily correct you, but perhaps just change the narrative on that. When you reference what the IOC wanted us to do, well, no, it's what the IWF itself has done, and as a consequence of that, the IOC has been satisfied with our progress. We're making these changes, we've made these changes, we'll continue to make these changes at IWF level because it's what we want to do. The consequence is that we come back onto the program of the Olympic Games. It's no secret the IWF spends upwards of $3 million US a year on anti-doping. It's no secret, and it's all independent. Everything the IWF does, whether it's in competition or out of competition, is done by a third party, that being the ITA, the International Testing Agency. So that's a decision that's been made now 3 or 4 years ago. We are signed at least until 2028 with the ITA, and that was a pivotal
Pivotal, yeah.
I'm speaking too much. A pivotal part of the decision made by the ISC to bring us back onto the program. It's a new IWF. We've got a new president on board since 2022, Mohammed Jalud. I was with him 2 days ago, and really under his leadership and at board level, IWF board level, I'm one of the soldiers, as it were, and my role is to focus on, as I've mentioned, the Olympic Games.
Yeah. I mean, this is lovely to see, though, isn't it? When I was reading, I was sort of summarising the newsletters to Aaron because he's not going to read that much text in one go. And when I pulled that out, I was like, it's really nice to see after how many episodes we've done, sort of talking about anti-doping and sort of the accessibility of drugs for young people. It's nice to see the sport really champion clean athletes. And it's nice.
Yeah, well, it's one of those values-based decisions that one makes. You're either 100% behind clean sport or you're not, and obviously it goes without saying here in the UK we work hand in hand with UCAD, and I can say at IWF level that's equally the case. ITA has full authority to lead on anti-doping matters.
And so from a competition standpoint for BWL, and that's where you still have to pay, so when we turn up to events and there's the doping control rooms, and they come and do all the testing, BWL fund that. That's... Yeah.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Pricey.
Yeah.
It's part of the narrative of ensuring we're providing that opportunity for not only athletes but also look from the parents' perspective. We want to create an environment that a parent's going to feel comfortable to bring their child into a competitive arena that's fair and reasonable and clean and has the highest level of integrity. So I don't see it as a cost, I see it as an investment to ensure that we can promote what we need to promote.
Yeah, that's lovely to
Yeah, it's a nice way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I immediately thought, Christ, that's going to be a drain on resources, but no, it's a positive thing.
But again, it's just how you look at it, isn't it? And for me, I'm pretty clear on this. We're a brand at the end of the day, and we're a brand that's gone through some I'm talking about British Weightlifting now. It's perhaps gone through some challenges over the journey, but at the end of the day, our brand is based on its people and the community that we're trying to create, and we have created, and promoting that. And as long as you kind of stay on the right side of the law, as it were, this is part of that investment.
Yeah. I might change the way I speak about that, because I always talk about anti-doping as being a cost on the sport, but an investment's a really nice way of...
But it is.
Yeah, I like that.
I cannot guarantee you that we're going to have zero doping internationally or here, just like I can't guarantee there's not going to be people inside jails. That's not society, that's not reality, but what we will do is ensure that we'll do everything in our power to provide either education or those sanctions if people do the wrong thing. But education obviously is the key, going back to the opportunity analogy I said before. So obviously education sits the key to everything that we do.
Yeah. Awesome.
I feel like this is like a job interview. Feeling grilled.
Do you still want the job at the end of it?
Yeah, when I did take on the role, someone said to me, congratulations and or commiserations.
Yeah.
So I'll come back
to that.
Yeah. I guess one of the last questions I got for you, and it, I don't know whether you can shed that much light on it, because it was obviously stems from years gone by. But being the ripe old age of 48,
thank you. Me or you?
Me.
No, I'm 50 this year.
50 this year. Yeah. You don't look it.
Thank you.
But so I'm in the Masters League, so obviously, and mixed, sort of rub shoulders with quite a few of the Masters.
Yep.
And I think you're in one of the WhatsApp groups for the Masters, and you are very quiet, which, considering the amount of noise that gets thrown around passion that gets thrown around in that WhatsApp group, I think I appreciate that. But a lot of people don't.
I'm quiet for a reason, by the way. I'm quiet for a reason because I want to listen to what the members wish to say. But I would also add that when I do need to contribute, I do contribute to that WhatsApp group because again, I think the passion of the members' community is exactly that. Yeah,
and again, I think that's what we've sort of touched on before, that you listen, and that's the thing. As an organisation, you want to listen to everything to make the sport better, and we appreciate that. But I think the history about the two, the division between what we have as traditionally the Masters and now BWL with the Masters, and how that's sort of developing over the past couple of years.
Yeah. I think it's more, is it chicken and the egg? What came first? I mean, factually, there are two organisations. One being British Masters, led by Mr. Barton. A well-known, long-time servant of the sport in this country. In fact, the one-time chairman of Baller, as it was known then, and ourselves being the NGB for weightlifting and powerlifting. For whatever reason, and I'm being very honest here, I don't know how the two organisations split, if indeed they were ever one. Don't know. I guess when Bill Barton was the chair, I guess it was one, but it split at some point in time. If I know well that until perhaps a couple of years ago, the two organisations didn't necessarily work well together or hand in hand for reasons that I'm not aware of. But certainly when I took over, and kind of consistent with our strategy and also personal belief and professional belief, it's about opportunity, but also understanding the reality of the two organisations, noting that the organisation that Bill leads in the UK is connected to the international body, or at least now one of the two international bodies. So I took the really clear view to reconnect with Bill, who I'd worked with previously when I was with London 2012, and ask Bill if he was open to work with British Weightlifting, respecting his autonomy and the autonomy of his organisation, and to find a way to support each other in the sense that anyone that competes in British Masters competitions are members of BWL, which is super important, but equally for British Weightlifting to recognise British Masters competitions. And somehow over the last couple of years, that relationship has got closer. We and I respect British Masters, and I know British Masters respects us. And so from a consumer perspective, it's probably, I guess, less than ideal because no one's expected to know the technical details of the history, but perhaps at least the Masters community can look at the greater opportunity they now have by having more competitions. And we're trying to put more resources into Masters competitions. I don't know what necessarily the answer is, whether or not Masters want to compete with the British Championships or a separate event as we did in Glasgow, because the WhatsApp group using that as a dial kind of has it halfway. But I would say in summary that we're working more closely with the British Masters because it's important. Yeah. Not only to have a strong relationship with British Masters, but it's important because the Masters community sits on that pathway and that journey of athletic participation. Whether you're young or young at heart, this is the sport for you.
Yeah.
I think for me, I love the idea of mixing the two. I don't see... I wouldn't get that opportunity to ever be in a training hall with the likes of Sarah Davis on another, when they're on the sort of senior platform. Yeah. And in being in that environment, I think it only adds to giving you that buzz and getting out on the platform and performing even better.
I loved that at Fitfest. Yeah. I was on the Marshall's table at Fitfest and I was just watching the training hall, and you had the men's 81s, the women's masters. It was just brilliant. It was so nice. You talk about inclusivity and you talk about making it accessible and seeing everybody together. Everyone was there for the same reason and enjoying themselves. It wasn't about how old you were or what gender you were or any of that. It was just everyone was training in the same place.
Yeah, 18 warm-up platforms we had at Fitfest. So I'm glad you said that. Thank you for that. Because it's important that we actually practice what we preach. Practice what you preach. Going back to weightlifting being two words, our strategy is really clear. Our strategy says at participation level that we aim to ensure that the UK becomes a fitter, healthier, stronger nation in all its forms. Fitter, stronger, healthier, emotionally, psychologically, physically. And I think by having competitions and events across all our age demographics speaks to that, because we compete for different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately it's performance, but for many of us, myself included. It's about participation and having that community environment and feeling safe and secure and happy and proud and confident in that environment. And the more we can create with that and in that, I think it bodes well for the future.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Did I get the job?
You got
You
the
did
job.
indeed. Congratulations.
We might get back to you in a week. We'll see what, we've got some other people coming, so we'll see.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I've really appreciated it. I know you're super busy. I think you got off the plane from China or Lima or somewhere
Both.
yesterday.
Both.
So both. So yeah, it's really nice to have you here. Normally at the end of an episode, we do not rip off Top Gear and get either ourselves or our guests to do a grip strength test.
Okay.
But we're going to take you out into the gym
Okay.
and get Mike and Henry and you guys to do it, if that's all right.
We're gonna
And
do
see
it.
how strong your grip is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
start
then
our leaderboard off.
get you on our leaderboard.
Who's leading at the moment?
No
Rob.
one. Well, only because Rob's the only person that's done it. Oh,
Yes.
no, actually, no, I have done it, and
You did it.
we've done it, so yeah.
Yeah, but Rob at the minute. But
Excellent.
yeah.
Look forward to it. Let me really genuinely thank you again and your viewers. On behalf of your viewers, I think the stuff you're doing is great. Any additional light and amplification that is provided to grow the sport is welcome by British Weightlifting. You set the bar, as it were, to the bar, metaphorically and physically, and you've created this niche in the market, and would love to come back next time because I feel as though you've almost gone a little bit soft on me.
Yeah,
It's a nice intro.
This is a little intro,
Is
and then
it?
we'll have you back. Yeah, we
Okay.
might ask the listeners what they want us to ask
No,
you.
please
Just,
do. I'd be happy to. And if there are any topics that you or your listeners, viewers wish to know more about, please contact British Weightlifting. That's all I can say. And it's not lip service. We're here to serve the members. Let me repeat for the last time, we're an athlete-centred, sport-focused organisation, and we don't claim to be perfect. What is perfection anyway? But what we do know is we're very clear what we need to do, and that is that going back, weightlifting one word, weightlifting two words, and if we can grow both, well then we're on the right path to success. I think the two can complement each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Very good.
Thank you, Matt.
Lovely.
Nice one.
Done. See, it wasn't that bad, was it?
Oh, it was, in fact...
You've been listening to the Bar, Strength in Every Story. Thanks so much for listening. We're so happy to have you as a member of our community. We have a passion for weightlifting, but we also have an insatiable curiosity about everyone's story. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at _2_thebar. And be sure to hit the website at 2-thebar.com. See you next time on To The Bar. And remember, there's strength in every story.